I can hear you, Dylan.
Great. Ken, are you on the line? Do you want to go ahead and kick this off? Maybe. Can't tell.
Yeah, he looks like he might be trying to unmute himself. There we go. Thank you, Ken.
Sorry, I had trouble unmuting there for a second. Good morning, everyone. I guess I've been asked to update on the CARES Act funds, and my discussion is going to be really short because, aside from the discussion of last week and the guidance document that we put out, there's been no further news that has come to us. What we've done is we used an estimate that was done by a third party, which I think you guys are all party to, estimating the amount per state, and then assumed that the allocation is going to be just proration of what this year's Title I is. And that's how we gave the guidance out. And again, used everywhere the word estimate, so that if there are any wrinkles in what the department puts out, we have to react to that. But as of right now, there's no further news, and the document we published that showed the amount per school district is the best estimate we can give right now.
Thanks, Ken. And I know that there's a conversation this afternoon with the Council of Chief State School Officers and the Assistant Secretary, Frank Brogan. So hopefully we'll get some more guidance on when those applications are going to get out.
In your position, again, as counsel for the agency, not as counsel for her. I mean, this is, and I've actually talked to Betsy about this once or twice.
Sorry, go ahead and mute yourselves if you're not talking. And then Kara is actually going to expand on what Ken said a little bit.
Hi, everyone. And I was just going to give a few updates. We had a financial discussion about what we know about the CARES Act at this point, and some of the questions that seem to continue to come up are, one, what are these funds allowed to be used for? And it's pretty wide open, not limited to the Title I expenditure allowances. The second question is, timing. When will this money come in? And we are, we don't have that information yet.
Right. I just am joining this. Here, hang on.
And the other question that seems to be coming up a lot is how do, there's a requirement for equitable services to be provided to the private schools under that. And at this point, what we know of is that private schools were included in the Title I allocation. So those private schools need to work with their resident districts, I'll say, and discuss what an equitable service would be in a similar fashion that Title I is. The next one is providing payments to employees and contractors to the greatest extent practicable. It seems to be coming up a lot. What is practicable? And to give an example, one district was saying, we have bus aides and we offered to let them work in a different role and they refused. So are we still required to pay them? And that's a local decision, and with their board of trustees and maybe their legal counsel on what makes the most sense in that fashion. And there's still a lot of confusion, I think, on transportation allowances. So we did allow some questions and answers on how that's going to be paid. And that is kind of a quick recap of questions and comments that we received during the webinar.
Thanks, Kara. And then the other piece of that funding from the CARES Act is the $8.8 million set aside for the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. Would McCall or Montpec, do you have any updates on that funding?
See that McCall isn't on the call.
Yeah, I just noticed that. So OPI submitted our recommendations on Friday. I believe Montpec has also submitted recommendations. Is that correct, Kirk?
We did, yeah. Montpec submitted recommendations as well on Friday to maximize flexibility of the use of the dollars and an allocation formula actually with the breakdown between higher ed and K through 12, using general fund budgets, basically, is the way the breakdown was submitted.
Thanks, Kirk. And then we also asked Holly Mook and Krista Emerson, if she's on the line as well, to talk a little bit about some new guidance that our Health and Safety Division has put together on safety and delivering school meals and educational materials. Holly, do you want to jump in on that?
Yes. Good morning, everybody. I wanted to thank those of you that are on this call right now that helped assist the OPI in putting this formal guidance together. We have what's called a Montana School Safety Advisory Committee that some of you are a part of. And we started getting a lot of questions and concerns around the safety of actually delivering school meals and school materials. So we spent some time with some national subject matter experts as well as local experts here in Montana to put together some guidance. I'm going to share my screen with those of you that are on the webinar right now to be able to see this. This document, our goal was to keep it at 2 pages, but of course things always get a little bit larger as national expertise weigh in. The one thing I wanted to point out is that we did date this. So as of today, this morning at this time, this is the most up-to-date and accurate information when handling materials and meals around COVID-19. So we have information in there on the sanitation of materials. The one thing that I did want to point out is that the national experts now, as you know, CDC has advised that everybody be wearing face masks whenever in public. They've also ruled that the homemade face masks are effective and should be used, as well as hand hygiene, remembering to sanitize and wash your hands. But the major emphasis there is to remember to maintain that 6 feet of social distancing. So they don't want people to get comfortable with the face masks and the hand hygiene being enough. They still want to emphasize that you should be using hand hygiene and you should be wearing the face mask, but that 6 feet for social distancing needs to remain in effect to keep that spread of the virus down. One of the interesting things that they are saying around materials is that schools should not be collecting the materials back from parents, that actually spreads the virus. And so I just wanted to kind of put that out there for people to know that that is the national recommendation right now, is that it's great to distribute. Please distribute. Think about how you're sharing textbooks and things like that, but it's kind of against their recommendation to turn around and collect that back. Then when we start moving into the child nutrition, there are lots of resources in here about that food safety guidance and the standard operating procedures, precautions. Once again, that social distancing and how incredibly important that is, even if you're wearing the face masks and sanitizing and using the hand hygiene. One of the things that's included on here are some videos on actually how to remove the gloves and the face masks, because one of the things that they were finding is that when people would take those off, they weren't handling them or disposing of them properly, which then was spreading the virus. And so that's included on here. The social distancing cards, kind of key points there. And then we ended on this whole myriad of resources here for people. I think one of the most helpful things is this frequently asked questions document from the CDC on COVID-19, and then just wanting to honor everybody that helped put this documentation together.
Thanks, Holly. We really appreciate that. Are there any questions for Holly or Ken or Kara?
doesn't mean that local school districts can't do that outreach as they work to build out their dual concurrent enrollment.
If not, before we jump into other business, we're glad that both Dylan Huisken and Linda Rost were able to join. Do you have any updates from Bonner or Baker, how their remote learning is going, Linda or Dylan?
Hi, everybody. This is Dylan. I think it's going pretty well in Bonner. I was really impressed with how quickly nutritional services got rolling. We're doing packets for all students right now that we deliver on Wednesday, along with meals. We got a good process for quarantining our materials. But the teachers hopped right to it, and a lot of us are doing blended learning so that kids that are really hungry for a lot of structured learning or extensions or options or kind of a menu of choices for their learning can do that online. But to be equitable, we're also providing the packet online as well. So, so far, I'm really impressed with what the kids have been able to do. The parent response has been nothing but positive. The key part for us has been calling our students on a regular basis, but I'll let Linda go.
That's great. Thanks.
Hi, this is Linda from Baker, and we made the transition a couple weeks ago at the high school, and it's going pretty well, but we do have some students that don't have access to internet, so that's been challenging to figure out how to make that work for them equitably. And at the beginning, we were collecting packets back and quarantining them, and now the elementary is shifting to all online, and I think they're shifting away from collecting packets, but I'm not really sure. So I was wondering how that information that Holly just shared is going to go out to the districts, because I do know that some districts are still mailing out packets and collecting them. And I know it's not a requirement to not collect them, but, and I have two children who are in grade school. So making that transition, I've kind of been in the middle of that part of the transition too, and that's been interesting, but it's going pretty well. And the online part, working with elementary teachers with my children, has gone really well. We're really enjoying that now, so.
That's great. Thank you, Linda. We really appreciate having our Teachers of the Year on this call to provide context on, what's happening on the ground. That guidance was just finalized yesterday, and so it's going to be shared out through the Montana School Safety Advisory Committee. And Holly, do you want to expand a little bit on that?
Yes, so thank you. This is Holly. Great questions. On our Montana School Safety Advisory Committee, we have a lot of the major players that are on this call today are part of that advisory committee. So, for example, Kirk Miller will share that out with his listserv. Dan Rask can share that out with his listserv. Dennis Parman, Emily Dean, so on and so forth. And then we will also have that posted to our OPI COVID-19 webpage. One of the big shout outs that I want to say is that Katie Bark was a big part of putting together this guidance, and she is with Montana State University's Team Nutrition. We will be hosting a webinar on this Thursday afternoon at 3 p.m. We're just trying to get all of the logistics of the Zoom meeting scheduled, but we will record that, and then that will be hosted on a YouTube channel so that we can send that out to everybody as well.
Thanks, Holly. And if you haven't seen it, it just popped up in the Missoulian today, and it's been in some other papers around the state yesterday. Linda and Dylan did an awesome op-ed about their experiences with remote learning. So check that out and share it. If you haven't seen it yet, it's in the Missoulian. So just before we got on this call, I saw a press release from the governor's office that they're going to be doing a press conference at 2 o'clock today. It'll be on MPAN's Facebook Live like the previous ones have been, announcing extended closures. I don't think that's a surprise to anyone. It looks like this closure for schools and businesses, as well as the stay-at-home order, are going to continue through April 24th. And I don't know, the national guidelines, it looks like they're moving everything back to the end of May. So I'd be curious, are any of, for the associations on the phone, or any of your members talking about or making plans for what this looks like for the rest of the school year?
This is Dennis. The school leaders I've spoken to in the last week believe that school will be closed for the balance of the school year. That's their best guess, but of course they know they need to wait and hear what the governor is going to state. I've been recommending that they begin to consider what it would look like to reopen, and have encouraged them all to look at some type of phase-in plan, that it's not going to be an overnight or even over the weekend type of an activity. You know, my money says probably not, but they're wanting to be prepared in either circumstance.
Sure, and I think we're all on the same page with that, recommending that the governor give schools flexibility as they phase back in if they do actually lift the order before the end of the school year, knowing that each district has pretty different calendars. That was all we had on the formal agenda. Superintendent Arntzen, do you have anything else, or does anyone else want to chime in here?
Well, I just want to say thank you again. It's not that we are just all settling into this new normal, but I do believe when we come out the other side, as Dennis, as you had just shared, that there's going to be multiple looks at this. It could be a parallel with digital. It could be more personalized learning. It could be just the same. What we want to offer is as much flexibility. We're looking at accreditation at this point because the assurances that are set in rule are already are there, but the assessment piece is not. And what that looks like will be anybody's guess. But our job is to be very flexible within rule, statute, and of course, even still looking with the federal government for what more we can ask. And I know on Thursday when we have this call, I'm going to have some experts from the OPI discuss some other type of waivers that we are seeking rather than the ones that the federal government is giving us. We are looking for a little bit more expansion on that. So there'll be more on that Thursday meeting that we have at 10:30.
Thank you, Superintendent. Anything else for the good of the order? Well, if not, we appreciate everyone's time. There will probably be a lot more to discuss on Thursday after, we hear what the governor's doing this afternoon and get off the phone with the Department of Education. So,
stay healthy, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.